Rachel, thanks so much. So, most Americans know 3 phrases in Spanish. Any guesses what those are? Hasta la... Well, una cerveza, por favor. Corona. After a few cervezas. Well, un taco, por favor. And then after a few tacos and cervezas. ¿Dónde está el baño? So, my presentation today, as Rachel indicated, is about my new book, which is actually coming out in Spanish. But what I want to talk to you today about is about introducing a new word in Spanish to marketers worldwide, and that's the word for success, or éxito. And it's actually a 5-step or 5-letter acronym for how to develop a successful digital marketing campaigns. I have to admit, before I walk you through the process, that actually my first experience with Spanish language acronyms was, unfortunately, a total disaster. I was actually working at Time Warner, working at CNN Money, and I moved to Mexico City to work at Grupo Expansión, one of the leading media companies in Mexico. They have the largest business magazine, Expansión. And together with the team there, we started CNN Expansión. And in that first meeting on that first day, they started using the word CEP. And I thought to myself, what is a CEP? I had studied Spanish for years, but totally lost the meaning of the meeting. But CEP is a Sección Especial de Publicidad, or special advertising section. So unlike that experience, I'm here to actually explain what that my 5-letter acronym means. We know the 4 Ps, place, price, product, and promotion, and it's been used for decades for marketing planning about, where are we going to sell our product, what's the price, how are we going to promote it, and the retail channel. But today there are a lot of new factors that we all know about. Technology. Chief marketing officers actually spend more than chief marketing officers, spend more than chief technology officers on technology and big data. There's a need for innovation, coming up with new ideas. There's a need for community and content, and there's a need to really listen to our community and use that research. And really, the benefits of a model break down a complicated process into simpler steps, and it makes things easier to remember and share and replicate. So let me walk you through the 5-step process for éxito, or it's the word for success in Spanish. So E is escucha su audiencia. Listen to your audience. What are they saying about your company, your brand, your competitors? X is experimenta como usuario. Put yourself in the shoes of the user. Develop user profiles. We all know the importance of that. The 3rd step is I. Integrate your communication channels. So how is social media and customer service, are they saying the same thing? T is transform your audience into a community using storytelling. And O is optimize. So these are all things we know, but just kind of put into a format that are easy to remember, for especially relevant for the Latin American markets, which, as Rodrigo talked about, are expanding so quickly. So let me share a few stories from my book, and we'll walk you through each one, one story for each step. So E, escucha su audiencia, listen to your audience. We all know the importance of user-generated content. Time named all of you the Person of the Year in 2006. And because of things like Google Plus and YouTube, that's fostered things like Occupy Wall Street, and the revolution in the Middle East. And here we see some graffiti, actually in Tunisia, thanking Mark Zuckerberg for providing them with a platform for organizing their revolution. Now, while that has a huge implication, obviously, on leadership of both governments and businesses, I'm not here today to talk about Facebook or Egypt, but rather, how can visual social networks change marketers out there? So I'd like to share with you this story of a case study from my forthcoming book. It's the story of 3M. Actually, 3M in Mexico. 3M makes the Post-it note, the square colored pieces of paper. And when they did a listening study about what people were saying about their product, they discovered that people weren't talking about the practical elements of their product, but rather how to draw Marilyn Monroe's face in the office or draw Steve Jobs' face on a window, or even play pranks on a friend and cover their car with Post-it notes, or maybe even put Pac-Man in the window. So the folks at 3M Mexico, after doing that listening study, said, why don't we just create a marketing campaign around what customers are already doing? So they actually created this virtual wall where you and I can create a profile and actually draw different designs using different colors. Here we see someone writing out the word for moda or fashion, and then actually print out a shopping list, put in your zip code, and then find out where you can buy that or what's the nearest retailer. So in conclusion, really the benefits to learning to listening that 3M showed here are how an inspirational idea can come from the audience directly, how it increased brand awareness, how what was once a commodity product kind of became differentiated through the marketing and communication, how it increased sales and drove traffic to the stores. But I think what's most interesting about this is how this idea started in Latin America and is now being replicated in South America and Asia, and how innovation can start in the emerging markets. Also very interesting how a paper product from the pre-computer world has become a pixel in the new world and kind of become more relevant in the interactive world. Step number 2, X, experimenta como usuario a través de perfiles. So how can we put ourselves in the shoes of the user using user profiles? So this chapter in our book is inspired by this behavioral economist you see here, is Dan Ariely. He teaches at MIT and Duke University, and he's the author of Predictably Irrational. And you see on his face there's a scar on the lower right side of his chin. And in his book, he talks about when he was 18, he was in a severe, 80% of his skin was burned. He was in a gas explosion. And that really changed the direction of his life and set a course for him for his professional work. And while in the hospital, he discovered, his body was covered with bandages. And every day the nurses had to change his bandages, but they removed them very quickly because they didn't want to experience the patient's pain. From his perspective, patients, it was much easier psychologically if the nurses removed the bandages slowly. So really what it showed was like how can we get out of our own head and really think about the user's perspective, which we draw a parallel in the book of like how companies, we all want to hit our monthly and quarterly numbers, but at the end of the day, the customers just want their problem solved, which shows why it's so important to develop profiles. So when we're developing our marketing campaigns and social plans or marketing media plans, how we can think about it according to different profiles. So the case study in the book that we have here that exemplifies this step is Banamex. Banamex is the division of Citibank in Mexico, and they really successfully developed user profiles to understand what do low-income consumers in Mexico and Latin America need for a banking product. Currently, most people in that audience do not have a bank account. So they went to the Mexican government and they reduced the 20 pieces of information that were required of people down to 8. And when they developed their marketing program, and this is in Spanish here, but they developed a kind of a 3-step marketing and word-of-mouth model for promoting their product and baked it right into the product development, where when someone signs up using their phone number becomes the account number, and they can invite the people that they have on their phone to join. And when that person signs up, each person that signs up gets 20 pesos deposited into their Banamex transfer account. So obviously the word-of-mouth element was baked right into how the product was developed.